Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Welcome to episode 131 of the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. And today we're here to talk again about Google, which is hard to avoid these days given all the news that's coming out about Google. We're going to be talking about the potential. Well, there are the things going on in the world, of course, but we're going to be talking about the potential revival of the bulk dashboard for multi-location management, Google's attempted listings cleanup and verification processes, which are getting more rigorous, and then also we'll be talking about a survey that I wrote about this week that seems to portray a Google user audience that's pretty ambivalent about it, the quality of ads and privacy and other things. And I thought it was pretty interesting as a snapshot about the way people feel about Google. So, David, you were forced into talking about the multi-location dashboard. So
I was challenged to a bet by Mike in the Monday newsletter this week around whether or not the Google Business Profile Manager for multi-location businesses, the bulk dashboard, whether that is going to receive any kind of revived investment in terms of resources from Google. I am not taking the bet, just for what it's worth. I am taking my winnings and enjoying my pint whenever the next time Mike and I see each other is. So let me get that out in public. This is not a re-upping of the bet. But I generally agreed with most of Mike's, sort of the second half of Mike's framing, which is largely Google's abandonment of the dashboard to date, which is the bet that I won, since they rolled out the NMX insert GBP editing experience. That abandonment has led to multi-location brands using a vendor to manage locations, whether that's Yext or Uberall or sign up, doesn't matter, any vendor, that Google has effectively pushed off the product development and the day-to-day management of listings for multi-location businesses to those paid software vendors. I generally agree with that take, and I think that it would be very hard for Google to sort of put that genie back in the bottle, that if you already have signed a contract with Yext or Uberall, whoever, because it's been such a nightmare to manage locations in bulk, like why would you switch away from this? Google would have to provide something totally unique in the dashboard that they don't provide via the API that these vendors are using in order to bring people back into it. And Mike's point in the piece is that this is a very newsworthy item, which is if you do manage listings in bulk in Google and you use the bulk insights reporting feature of the dashboard, you should go in and download all of your previous 18 months of data immediately before this change happens. The change is that the insights that are being reported via the bulk dashboard are now going to be at parity with what's reported via the API. So if you had been using the dashboard to report insights either for your own business, enterprise, or for clients, you want to make sure that there's a one-to-one for the last 18 months, because it's going to change. The numbers will look very different in October. And so I don't see this as a feature development. I see this as Google continuing to de-emphasize and de-resource the bulk dashboard. It is an elimination of technical debt, having to maintain two different databases of insights, one for the API and one for the bulk dashboard. It's now going to be the same database. And that's kind of all I think this is. I don't think it portends any reinvestment or additional resources going to the multi-location dashboard.
Mike, is there some competing argument that you can make that's credible?
Well, for me,
that was very. I have to say that was quite persuasive on David's part.
There is several categories of users that need multi-location management. Agencies, for example, and they developed an agency functionalities 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that use the bulk dashboard as its primary interface. And businesses that are between 10 and say 100 listings that currently are not well served by either Yext or the NMX. So there is an audience. That's argument one. Argument two is, I mean, why not just nuke it? Why keep it sort of dangling around?
Because then there is literally no way to edit listings directly in Google for a multi-location brand, which seems like a bad idea. So,
you're right. I mean, we will know if they fix the obvious bulk update that has never worked, right? Like just rejecting changes to listings in bulk has never worked, even though the feature has been there. If they fix things like that, we know that this dashboard has some life, even if it's going to limp along. If they don't fix that sort of obvious weirdness and the obvious weirdness of the UX forcing users out of the dashboard into NMX, which is like, why have to do all that, right? You know, those two things, if they get changed, you know.
Forcing users out of the dashboard into the NMX, you left out a step there, which is forcing users into a CAPTCHA to prove that they're human before they load the NMX because they've loaded 6 listings in a row.
The other oddity in this is that certain features like photo management has been in the dashboard and is still better in the dashboard, right? It's like, it's neither hither nor yon, as it were. So I only put this out there just to see if I could get David to get his eyeballs to roll a little. It was more of an experiment in internal politics than it was
an internal troll. Yes,
an internal troll, rather than it wasn't my strong belief about Google finally fixing this piece of crap. But maybe they will. That's all I got to say.
Well, we know that I would add that we know that Google is motivated by one of two things, which is revenue growth, and or external legal and regulatory compulsion. And neither of those factors are operating here, I might say.
That's true. That is true.
They're only operating in that ads revenue is potentially at risk if advertisers are having such a miserable experience managing location data to which they are sending things like local inventory ads and that sort of thing.
In categories,
I do think that there
Google
is an ad revenue risk here,
products,
but there's no direct revenue upside for sure.
Right.
So.
Right.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.